Good evening and welcome to St. Andrew. Tonight we are hosting our third and final in a series of financial seminars, and tonight's topic is going to be on the subject of retirement. In these more challenging times, many who probably had their plans all put together on retirement perhaps are wondering, am I still going to be able to retire? Maybe others of you are saying, do I need to change my strategy for retirement? How will I know if I'm truly ready? So we have invited a friend, Peter Hess, here from Thrivent to come talk with us this evening and perhaps answer some of those many questions for you. Peter is a financial associate, and he's in his 10th year with Thrivent. He began his career as a collegiate track and field coach, then transitioned to the corporate world with Cargill as a commodities trader, and then in 2011 he was recruited to Thrivent by his brother, who has a practice in Georgia. Peter and his wife Jessica have been married for 15 years and they live in Waconia with their two daughters, Avery, who's 10, and Devin, who is 8. As we have our presentation tonight from Peter, if you have questions that you would like him to answer more specifically, you can text in those questions to this number if you have a pencil to write it down. Otherwise, it will be scrolling on the screen as we go through our session tonight. But the number is this. It's 612-562-6796. I will then capture that question, and at the end of our session we will then present those questions to Peter, and he will do his best to answer them, and if not, we can try to get back to you later with more information. So with that, I'd like to welcome Peter and ask you to just go right ahead.
Thank you, Pastor Gail. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here this evening. Not uncommon to giving seminars. In fact, over the last probably 5 years, I've given seminars probably to the tune of about 120, and most of those were about 3 or 4 years ago. This evening we'll have about 35 minutes, and I did put together a brief agenda here. A little intro about us, and thank you for that intro. I do want to share with everyone, if you do see me again in the next month, post Christmas Eve, I will be beardless and back to my shaven self. I did lose a bet 6 weeks ago to a wonderful group of cross-country girls who I help coach in the area, and they exceeded their expectations, and these are my pennants that I'll serve, but we'll be clean cut again for Christmas. That being said, it is wonderful to be here, and we do want to share a little bit about Thrivent, who we are, what we do, and how we work with our clients. And then really for the meat of our presentation tonight, talk about really the keys of retiring fearlessly. A lot of uncertainty, and how do we address some of those concerns that many pre-retirees and existing retirees are concerned about. And then briefly just how we work with our clients, what that looks like, how my colleague Chad Hinkie and I specifically work with individuals in their current state, and then as Pastor Gail mentioned, time for Q&A. So who are we? Christian-based organization that's been around for about 115 years. Predominantly been known as Lutheran Brotherhood or Aid Association for Lutherans. Known to provide insurance protection solutions, and we have evolved into Thrivent Financial today. We're here to support not only our members, which are about 2.3 million nationwide with 2,500 advisors serving them. We wanted to serve them as a holistic advisor. And what does that mean? Well, we are not just providing protection pieces. We are not providing just only investment solutions. We want to provide you with a process that allows you to address your priorities, your focuses, and what is unique to you. I know that as you hear about Thrivent, you understand that we are a fraternal organization, and we give a lot charitably back within our community, specifically within schools and churches such as St. Andrew's. Being a fraternal organization, it allows us to give back generously to the tune of about $250 million a year. And that's through a number of different avenues that our members are allowed to provide those resources to the things that they're most passionate about. But we also are going to provide services that give financial advice through your investments that you have in place, making sure that we're providing that insight that meets you to where you're at. We believe that life is better with a purpose. We describe it as financial clarity. Oftentimes, we have a lot of unknowns, and we want to make sure that we kind of clear the air of that. And at Thrivent, we treat money as a tool, not just as a goal. And the reason for that is while using it as a tool, we want to be good stewards of what the good Lord has provided us, so that we may provide that purpose to what is most important to you, and be able to share and give in ways after we've covered our needs and wants in life. A little bit more about Thrivent. We've had a long history, and really our credit rating shows that we're going to be serving those members for many years to come. We're very fortunate. I think it's the 8th year straight that Ethisphere has recognized us as some of the most ethical companies in the world, actually. And really just when we serve $150 billion of assets under management, that just says that, again, we're trying to be good stewards of that, but we're a large enough organization. I think we're about Fortune 325 now, and we're not going anywhere. We're here to serve as a legacy to not just our existing members, but their legacy as well. Really, many ways that we can help. I think one form of advice that we're going to try to provide is, again, what is your process? What is the priorities that you're focused in on? The investments that'll let you balance between purpose and performance. I think it's important that people realize that it does go in hand, that there's going to be a purpose served, but it's also important what sort of performance that's going to provide. Making sure you have the right offerings of insurance to provide that protection so that you're not taking steps back in the planning that you've done, that you have some of these derailers in place to avoid, in making sure that protection is properly positioned. Obviously, banking, I think in previous seminars we talked a little bit about managing and tracking and looking at spending. Banking can help support that in many different needs and areas in lending. Our credit union just provide that solution. And then where we're known as the ability to give back and provide generosity. Help people be wise and inspire generosity. That is something that we are passionate about. I'd love to share more about Thrivent, and I could go on for another 20 minutes, but I'd love to be a resource to answer some questions, and obviously utilize Thrivent.com to share more about what financial clarity may be and how we view it. So for the meat and potatoes of why you're here this evening, I think it's important to really reference Proverbs, and so I did what any pastor's son would do, and I Googled up planning Bible verse, and I came up with Proverbs 16:9. A person's heart plans his way, but the Lord determines its steps. I know in March of 2020, I received a phone call from my father-in-law. In fact, I had just recently came back from a spring break vacation with my 2 daughters. It was their first trip out of the country. Had a wonderful time with my wife, and was just hearing about this coronavirus, which was entertaining, having come from Mexico. And I heard some nervousness from my father-in-law, 64 years of age, his wife 61 years of age, my mother-in-law, and they are some pretty important clients over the last 10 years. And Ron had retired within the last 2 years, very fortunate for his career. And he was watching the market fall and fall and fall. He said, Pete, are you going to be okay? I said, Ron, this is what I'm seeing here. It's about probably March 19th. This is the biggest drop since 2008, but we've prepared for this. And the fact of the matter is that, yes, there was losses in accounts. Yes, there were impacts of concern, but what I was able to provide them was a clear picture of where we were at, where you currently are at, and what options they have going forward. During this time of uncertainty, many of us are looking for something to be certain of. And I oftentimes tell my clients, in particular, my family members, my friends, those that I work closely with, something's going to happen tomorrow. As it relates to your investments, something's going to go up, something's going to go down, and something's going to stay the same. And what I hope to create is a peace of mind for that situation, so that as this slide details, retiring fearlessly will provide you with a great option. So I was able to sit down with them face to face. There was no restrictions by end of March, and really step them through the options of the worst case scenario. And they fortunately had some buckets that provided them some additional solutions, and I'll share some of that with you and how that applies to you, and some of it won't apply. What I do know is that as I go to seminars, as I go to learn and hear back, there's going to be a lot of questions. And of course, here on this slide, you'll see some things that may pertain to your retirement that are very important. But I know that each and every one of you that are listening tonight or viewing this, that it's going to be a unique circumstance to you. And one thing I will share with you is that some of this will pertain to you, and some of this will be relevant, and some of it's just uniquely different because of your circumstances. So it will not all apply. But my hope and takeaway for you all this evening is this, that you can have some tidbits to be more confident, to take away with your retirement planning, and you'll have some resources available to you at your leisure to review, provide a little perspective of where you might be and where you might want to go. So I kind of appreciate this little image here. My father-in-law, Ron, that I alluded to, he has a 1970 Stingray Corvette that was fully restored. And that was part of his concern because you see, over the last year, including March of 2020, he was restoring this Corvette, and he had dumped a fair amount of money into that car, and maybe in my mother-in-law's thought, maybe a little too much money. But what I see here is obviously 4 gears. Most of us who are listening to this, I'm 41 years of age, realize that there was something less than 5 or 6 or even 8 gears. But this manual image shares with me really great perspective of how we should think about our retirement. And as you're shifting into first gear, you're really getting things going. And what I think of that there is as I'm getting things going with my retirement assets, I really want to cover my needs. And that's going to come in the form of retirement guaranteed income. And that can be a pension you're very fortunate to have. It'll be Social Security. It may be some additional options that provide you that guaranteed income. As you shift into second gear, we're really looking at covering our wants. And those are things that we are fortunate to be able to fit into our lifestyle. That may be being able to go out to eat, which of course isn't an option today, but helping support those local businesses through takeout right now, whatever it may be. But those things that you don't have to do, but you happen to be taking care of or enjoying it as your lifestyle. As you shift into third gear, you're really gaining a little bit of momentum. And these are those one-off things. This is my father's putting money into the new vehicle, restoring, that's the word I was looking for, restoring that beautiful vehicle that he has, and then being able to do those one-off trips, whether it be buying that RV and going across the country, going to travel Europe when there's no issues. If I had more time, I'd share my non-European travel that would have happened for our 15th wedding anniversary, but that's for another time. And shifting into fourth gear is really giving back. You've really gained all this momentum. You're cruising down the highway. You're thankful for what the good Lord has provided you. You shifted into fourth gear and really said, I'm on cruise control now. I have a position that I want to be able to share and give to others within our community, within our church, within the things that we're passionate about. And those are really the momentum that we're trying to steer through. So where will these sources of retirement income come from? There's, as I mentioned, unfortunately, pensions are going far and few between. And the pensions that are available, some of them don't look as good as they had, meaning they have been underfunded. And we hope that's not an issue. Rental income, real estate. There's wonderful options with the real estate market. People have taken advantage of those, especially with low interest rates, creating a source of retirement income from that. Obviously, individual IRAs, 401ks, retirement accounts, that's the obvious thing that we look at. Annuities, whatever it may be. But many of these things aren't guaranteed. One of the things that we do look at, I will pause and take a step back, is I hope many of you are familiar with SSA.gov, your Social Security, and having access to that, and what might be available to you through specific filing strategies. Some of these strategies have gone to the wayside. Again, as I gave many Social Security seminars and provided specific Social Security planning for unique situations for each household, I really found that you need to better understand the impact of the longevity of what that benefit can be for you, specifically within Social Security. My father-in-law, again, he turned 65 in January. He has not received any Social Security benefits. And we have to do some planning because his father passed away 10 years ago at age 94, and his mother is as of September, 100 years of age, right in Sigourney, Iowa. So we are planning from a longevity perspective of he's been retired, and hypothetically, we may have 35 years of additional planning to do. So I got to get this right, whether it's March 2020 or 35 years from now. So make sure as you look at SSA.gov and look at your Social Security options, you're going to have different filing status options at certain age. Make sure you understand the impact of the taxation on that Social Security because that is a significant part of your guaranteed income. And I know there's still uncertainty as to how Social Security will continue to be funded over the next 15/35 years. And so as you have questions, love to be able to try to answer some of those. All right, protection from volatility. So here's where the road and the tires got going down the road. And what I see here is we have guaranteed income that really helps support a lot of those needs. That's the basis of what I put into Ron's plan. He again was fortunate to have a great pension. He was a utility lineman for 35 years. Had some great options from that, but also he has an annuity in place. He has a guaranteed paycheck that he receives from Thrivent every month. The first of the month, he loves it. It's coming his way. He knows that it's going to cover his needs and, quite frankly, some of his wants. The near term, that middle bucket, very essential right now. With this uncertainty, we want to know that we can cover any additional needs, but we probably, hopefully, have that covered by our guaranteed income. And more importantly, we can avoid the volatility that's moving up and down as this market runs. So oftentimes that near-term bucket is going to have very liquid assets that are readily available, very low risk, and provide us flexibility. I'll talk more about the taxation on one of the next slides, but have flexibility so that we have access to that to really cover some of our wants. It may not be, we hopefully avoided some of those need sorts of things. And then really importantly, a growth bucket, something that will keep up with inflation and offset what the impact or the cost of things will be over time. Keeping with a car analogy, in, let's see, 1994, was it? I think, no, it would have been 1996. I bought my first vehicle, a 1988 Nissan Altima, $4,200. I would guess today, though, that there are many $4,200 vehicles that my cost of my next vehicle is going to be something very different than my first vehicle. And the cost of that gallon of gas that I put in that vehicle is very different today, though no one's complaining about, I think $1.64 at Costco on my way over. That being said, we need to have things that offset this inflation as costs increase. You need to have a growth bucket that will take on some additional risk. So we know that there will be volatility in that growth bucket. And we know that we will not pick the perfect day that this is the time that we actually pull these funds from, but we hope that it's not here. Because when it's here, when it's at that bottom, when it is that March 19th and Ron Hanchett calls me and says, what's going on? I'm able to tell him, don't worry about it, Ron. We've got a near-term bucket. We've got money set aside for the next 3 to 5 years, and some individuals that may be 7 to 9 years. Whatever provides you that comfort level and takes that risk off for you so that you don't have to worry about that growth bucket. And we'll position those assets appropriately as well. Don't outlive your savings. Okay, so this was where I should have really been talking about my Nissan Altima. But that being said is that if we are only looking at having, hey, I approach retirement, I'm going to take the risk all off the table. Now the problem is going to be is that I don't know how long I'm going to live. Only the good Lord can provide that insight, and I just don't know what that is. In fact, I don't know if you know how much you're going to spend your first year of retirement, your 5th year retirement, your 10th year retirement. So the point of it is have some measures in place that give you flexibility. I say right now, because it is, the markets are at all-time highs. You should have accounts that give you a lot of options to choose from. If the markets are down like they were in March, you're maybe limited on your options, but I still want you to have options to choose from. So allow yourself the ability to create flexibility, have buckets that provide that, and make sure that it's not all positioned so that you don't outlive those savings. And that is essential, especially if you have a father that lived to be 94 and you have a mother who's still alive and doing great at age 100. So I would say our biggest value prop as advisors is not saying, this is the investment that's going to make you money. Because guess what? I know that tomorrow I'm either right or tomorrow I'm wrong. I'm kind of like the weather person. I do know that tax legislation will change, but I can guarantee that your investments will be taxed in a certain way. And I'm one to say that it may not look the same in 2020 as it will in 2025 or beyond, but I know that I'm going to create some flexibility to have some tax efficiency in the future. I think it's important that you realize that your retirement accounts are accounts that are going to be taxed later, and there should be a great importance of distribution strategy that is in place. You're going to have savings accounts that interest is taxed annually. You'll probably have some other investment accounts that are non-qualified accounts, meaning non-related to IRAs or those sorts of things that are just taxed on an annual basis. That would be via dividends or capital gains. And then you'll have that tax never again bucket, which might be Roth money. It might be even cash value life insurance money, municipal bond type of money, money that is not taxed ever again, which is great. We want to make sure to create that flexibility so that as you take a distribution in, as you say, I want to enjoy these dreams and be able to give, that we're being efficient with those resources as well. The big what ifs. I mentioned earlier derailers. Oftentimes, the what ifs are not necessarily what we want to talk about. We have this happy valley strategy that says, hey, we're going to get from A to B when we graduated from high school or college and we got our first job and we started setting money aside for this retirement date, and this is going to work perfectly from A to B. It's not the case. I know that, unfortunately, people will pass prematurely, at least this plan. They won't make it till age 94 and 100. I know that, unfortunately, people will have long-term care needs. They'll have health issues. We pray for them, and we hope that their struggle is as painless as possible. But that's a reality. We know those people. And so the fact of the matter is that you can have all these things in place, and you can have these buckets in place, and something can come along and derail that. And so we want to have conversations of, if you have these wonderful pension options, does it have a survivor benefit? And if it doesn't, should we have some things in place that provides your spouse some options just in case you predecease your spouse, which is someone that it will happen. That being said, there's a cost associated to it. I always tell individuals, households, if life insurance was free, I would provide my wife with tens of millions of dollars. But there's a cost or reality to it. And I also say that I'm only going to pay for my wife's first trip around the world. Her second husband can take care of the second trip. I usually get a laugh out of that, so I'm hoping somebody found something entertaining there. But the bottom line is that there's a cost that passes the risk off, in this case to Thrivent, that helps you protect your loved ones or your legacy plan because of those derailers. So I'm gonna kind of transition here to these being the 5 keys. And I know I covered a lot of this quickly, but I do want to, for the sake of our time here this evening, allow us to share a little bit about how we work with our clients and allow for a little Q&A. But I think the big takeaway here is that, as I shared earlier, in a time of uncertainty, we want to be certain of things that we have and be good stewards of the things that we've provided. Helping people be wise with money and inspire generosity isn't just something that we take lightly. We're going to look at these 5 steps and make sure that you have some guarantees in place within your retirement plan, have some protection against that volatility that is very certain to happen. In fact, since the election, I've been shocked of what the market has continued to do, and we aren't certain of what will happen tomorrow. Really, it's important to understand what it means to not outlive your savings. I think if the best planning that's done out there is being the step 4 of being appropriately utilizing your tax brackets and doing great planning around that, and making sure that if those what-ifs are in place, that you have some protection against those derailers, and make sure that your loved ones and your legacy is executed on that plan with resources that you've been provided. One of the things that we do have to offer, and I'll make sure to pass this along to St. Andrews, is this income match assessment. And what it allows you to do is look at your existing resources and better understand, are these liquid assets, are these guarantees, and make sure that it provides you a perspective and actually a calculation of, maybe I should have more guaranteed income because I feel that these are more of my needs, and maybe I should have more in this growth bucket that provides me opportunity in the future. I will make sure that that's passed along, and for those that are interested, they will have that as a PDF that can be sent to them. But as I mentioned, a great resource. I'll skip to the next slide here. One of the things that we do at Thrivent is really work with people at where they're at. And really, there's many different ways that you can work with us. Obviously, we provide protection pieces, and so you may have a insurance need, and here's a term insurance. You may have investments that are out there, and here's some options as to where you could place those money. And really, the approach that we've taken, my colleagues and I, has really been this fee-based planning, and better understand your circumstances, hear your goals, your priorities, and then let us be the third party that provides you observations and recommendations. And whether you take those things to do on your own, or you ask another professional to take those on, including ourselves, we're trying to give you third-party perspective of guidance where you're at. Those areas of focus are not uncommon to the things that we've been talking about: investments, making sure to better understand your tax situation. Oftentimes there's some estate planning. I just recently worked with some farmland situation, which Thrivent doesn't own or buy farmland. It had everything to do with how These proceeds should be divvied out to the four siblings and how the farms would be split. So doing some specific estate planning and working with their attorney to make sure that those dreams and wishes are passed along. So what does a financial planning relationship mean? I already alluded to this. Really discovering and understanding exactly those priorities that are important to you. Put together a strategy that is effective and efficient, but the ability to be implemented. Our desire is to provide you not only written recommendations, but recommendations that you can execute on the timeline that is important to you. I tell people I'm in this relationship with, you tell me what the timeline might be, and the reality is when we meet again, which may be 6 months from now, it may be 3 months from now, and it could be 5 years from now, because you've just said this is a one-time relationship until my next life event. Things will change. And so our job as advisors is to readdress that focus, that priority that's important to you, and make sure to help execute on the next objective and help you get from A to B. Keep that plan in motion, and that's what's important. What is the cost associated to this? Well, the reality is there's going to be a large scope of topics that might need to be covered. If you're pre-retiree or even earlier than that, there might be many areas of focus that you want to factor in on. The complexity of the situation. We work with small business owners that have more than just a W-2 income and a retirement account. We factor that in. And then really our experience. I'm the young buck of this. My colleague Chad Hinkey, he's been in the business 18 years. And so due to that experience and our commitment, it really depends on what that circumstance might be. But we'd be happy to provide more perspective of what that might look like. And how long does the relationship last? And that's entirely up to you. I tell folks this can be an ongoing relationship. I'm readily available to meet you where you are, or it can be as it relates to these life events. And here's our priority and focus. I'm retiring December 31st. I'd love to have a financial plan in place, and we're going to execute that plan, and we'll take that information and enjoy retirement. So there are options for either. That being said, I wanted to make sure to stick to my commitment. We're at about 33 minutes now, but would love to take the opportunity if there's some questions that have been asked.
Yeah, we have a couple questions here.
Great.
The first one is there an age when we should be more proactive in managing our 401k accounts?
Great question. So managing the 401k accounts and being proactive. The way that I look at it is that we're going to be right or wrong in those choices. And so I wouldn't say there's a specific age, but there's always more and more urgency as you get closer to that retirement date. What I look at is that if you have a certain runway, a certain time frame as to where there's really this exit strategy where you've accumulated these assets over 20, 30 years, depending upon your comfort level of risk, you really want to determine kind of where that near-term bucket is, but you're also going to want to be very clear of what is also the guaranteed income. So to answer the question, if I were to give guidance and you were to put me on the spot, give me a date, Peter, I don't want to be vague. I would say 10 years prior to retirement should be very focused on making some changes, but better understanding how you'd utilize that asset in the coming years.
Good. You also talked about life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a time or a point at which you should take action to perhaps reduce your level of insurance?
Yep. So insurable need. So I'm 41 years of age. I have a 10-year-old and an 8-year-old. I have a wife that's mid-career, and I'm going to have a different insurable need than my parents who are 60. Well, actually, Friday, Mom will be 67. I have a different insurable need than them. So to answer the question, the benefits, unfortunate death benefits that are provided to the beneficiaries are going to be something different because maybe your assets and liabilities have changed from 41 to 67. So the answer is how do you utilize that? Because it is a leveraged asset or a benefit. How do you utilize that in the future? And that's going to mean something different for somebody else. I know that my household and my family, they plan to utilize their life insurance in a different way than others who say, guess what, I've got X amount of money, I have no liabilities, I don't know if I need life insurance. So oftentimes your insurable need reduces, but sometimes people keep that in place only for the fact that they may want to have that passed along to their kids, and in turn, a retirement account that is taxable to the kids, they may give to the church. So there are some unique ways to where you can provide a benefit. The benefit, by the way, of providing the retirement to a nonprofit, being such as the church, is that's not taxable to the church, where the life insurance is not taxable to kids. You avoid that taxable income that the IRS receive if the retirement account was just directly benefited to the kids.
One more here. What is the income benefit for taking Social Security at 62 versus age 67 or 68?
Great question. So if you're born after 1960, your full retirement age is actually age 67. And if it's 67, but you take the benefit at age 62, your Social Security benefit from full retirement age would be reduced by 30%. So oftentimes what we look at is, from a guaranteed income perspective, is we look at what do you feel, and it's a loaded question, I get it. What do you feel that your life expectancy might be? And whether that be, tell me what the national average is or the world average is. Let's say it's 85. And trust me, over the last year, your perspective may have changed. I know that my mother reached out to me and said, I was planning on taking it one more year. What difference does it make if I take it this year? I said, Mom, do whatever you want. She took it this year. But to answer your question, there's a 30% change. Now, each and every year you wait from age 67 to 68, 68, 69, 69 to age 70, each of those years you have an 8% increase, guaranteed increase on that overall benefit. So oftentimes the planning that we do is we look at that break-even period of if you took it at age 62 compared to age 67, or if you're one that says, I'm going to wait till age 80 and receive these delayed credits, this 8% increase, we'll look at what those break-even periods are of, actually, if you make it till age 78, the 67 option pays out more after age 78, and again, that will all be dependent. Historically, the numbers that I've seen, and I've run thousands of options over the last 10 years, is usually the break-even point is somewhere between age 78 and 82. But it's all going to be very specific on your filing status, your earnings benefit, what the full retirement benefit would be at your full retirement age. So a lot of factors there. But the important piece is that 70%, so a 30% reduction at an early age, making sure to understand when that break point is, and knowing what options you actually have going forward.
Very good.
Wonderful.
That's the questions that we have.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Want to thank you for joining us this evening, and to thank those of you who sat in on our session tonight. Contact information was on our screen, and if you didn't catch it and you still would like us to connect you with Peter or others at Thrivent, you can certainly reach me, Pastor Gail at standrewlou.org, and I'm happy to be able to help you connect. Thank you again, and have a good evening.